Welcome to the second episode of Optimal Aging podcast series presented by the University of Louisville Traeger Institute in collaboration with Aging with Grace 55 Plus. I'm your host, Dale Josie, and today's episode focuses on cognitive health. And we have two expert physicians and two experts on the subject, I should say, one of which is a physician, which is Dr. Josephine Gomes. And she is the director. And also later, you're going to hear from Dr. Joe D'Ambrosio, who is the Director of Behavioral Health at the Traeger Institute. But first, Dr. Gomes, welcome to Aging with Grace 55 Plus. How are you?
I'm doing good, Dale. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here, too, in your capacity as a board-certified internal medicine and also in geriatric medicine. You have quite the pedigree, including as medical director of the Care Clinic and Brain Health Service at the Optimal Aging Clinic. I also note in your bio that optimal aging is important to you. What does that mean, optimal aging, from your perspective?
Well, we want people to live, as they grow older, to live a full life. And so when we say optimal aging, we basically want to be able to have people be as functional and independent as possible.
Mm-hmm. As functional and independent as possible. And then, but here's the thing, when you talk about functional independence, as we age, we forget things, right? And so the question is, as we age, and if we start having difficulty, for example, I don't know, remembering names, is this normal, or should we worry about the onset of dementia?
So, Dale, just as as the whole of our body ages as we get older,
Mm-hmm.
our brain too changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so some degree of cognitive slowing does happen as we age. So we may have slower thinking. It may be harder to learn some new information. We may occasionally forget a name or a word. But these slight changes can happen with aging.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, the information is stored. And so we can usually recollect it later.
Okay.
But with the dementias, what happens is that the connections have been disrupted. And so information cannot be stored. So you cannot really retrieve that information.
Well, I guess the question then is, are you drawing a distinction between dementia and Alzheimer's? And if you are, what is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's?
Okay, yes. So dementia is like the all-inclusive term, where there's a decline in the cognitive function that affects daily living. But Alzheimer's is actually one of the kinds of dementia. Mm-hmm. So it's the most common kind of dementia, accounting for nearly 60 to 80% of all cases. Mm-hmm. But there are other kinds of dementia, like the Parkinsonian dementia, vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, to name a few. And in some cases, we have a combination, so like a mixed dementia.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're talking about mixed dementia and, given you're certified in geriatric medicine, I imagine you've seen and you've dealt with extensively all of these different levels of dementia. And so what is the prognosis, number one, and number two, is there a typical treatment pattern for either Alzheimer's or dementia?
Yeah, so actually, depending on the different kinds of dementia, the treatment can vary because there are certain medicines, and actually now is a real exciting time for dementia because there are newer medicines as well.
Wow.
So the treatment differs depending on the kind of dementia.
I've never heard anybody say, and I want you to repeat this, given your pedigree as a physician certified in geriatric medicine, that now is a good time for dementia, which suggests there's been some cutting edge science and some introduction of new products and protocols for treating dementia.
Right. There is newer things. The field of dementia and the treatment modalities as far as dementia is concerned, it's been really nearly 30 years plus that we didn't really have much in the form of treatments for dementia. And in the last 1 or 2 years, we have, and it's just keeps growing, there are newer treatments that are becoming available.
One of the things I like about working with the Traeger Institute on Optimal Aging and also interviewing you today is that you guys are constantly promoting being proactive in our health. And as such, as being proactive, are there certain things that we should or should not be doing to protect our or improve our brain health as we age?
Yeah, so we should try and adopt like a brain healthy lifestyle. The goal being to improve our cognitive reserve. So if we have a greater reserve, then there is going to be less, the symptoms are going to have a longer time before it can affect any functional decrease. So first, I would say very important is physical exercise. So keep moving.
Keep moving.
Keep moving. Exercise has consistently been shown to help with cognitive health. It helps to lower blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, helps sleep, helps mental health, improves vascularity. As you can tell, I'm saying keep moving. So exercise definitely has consistently shown. The other one would be just like we need physical exercise, we need mental exercise.
Okay.
So keep sharp and keep your brain stimulated. That helps to improve that cognitive reserve. So that could involve like reading, doing puzzles, word searches, learn a new skill, learn a new language, art, painting, whatever, any activity that brings you joy and that you're going to higher chance that you're going to maintain it. So physical exercise, mental exercise. Next is basically have adequate sleep. Sleep is very essential. That's when the brain kind of processes information, and so we can develop memories. If you have any questions of sleep apnea, get it corrected because it does affect cognitive function. Then control of vascular risk factors like your blood pressure, your diabetes, cholesterol, no smoking. Then I would say means address any mental health issues. Then avoid risky behaviors because traumatic brain injury definitely down the line can cause cognitive decline. Excessive alcohol use also can affect brain function. And maintain social connection.
Maintain social connections?
Yes, create and maintain, I would say.
Yeah.
Because if we saw a lot during COVID when older people were isolated.
Yes.
It caused a significant decline in a lot of brain function and cognitive function of older adults.
One of your colleagues in a previous episode of this series, Barbara Gordon, she talked about isolation, and how there's a tendency of people to want to mole in as they're older. And then you just touched again on what she said, Dr. Gomes, which is the deleterious, the horrible effects of COVID-19, which exacerbated a lot of people pulling in. So to your point, you really want to say, make sure that you are pushing outward, you're looking outward to maintain those important social connections to keep for brain health, optimal brain health. Let me ask you another question. There's millions of dollars are being spent, and I'm sure our consumers will know our listeners will know who they are without naming them on this series, unless I could get this podcast, this product I'm about to mention to sponsor me. So maybe I should think about that in the back of my mind, but I'm not going to take that chance, Dr. Gomes. But what I am going to ask you, rather than naming the product, is I'm going to mention to you millions of dollars are being spent on consumer advertising on products that you can buy over the counter or subscribe to for improved cognitive health, improved brain function. Do you subscribe to any of those, or would you just simply say, outside of a prescription, of course, from you writing a script, is there certain things that we should be consuming naturally to improve brain health, or do we need an over-the-counter supplement or something from your script?
So a healthy diet does help with brain health, with your brain health, really. But when I say a healthy diet, we are talking, and there is actually a diet called the MIND diet, which is a combination of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet. But the goal of the whole diet is healthy eating. So it is a good amount of veggies and fruits, low processed foods, diet rich in berries and antioxidants, so nuts. So that would be kind of the healthy diet. There are a lot of products that have been sold that help with, that's advertised that will help with memory, but really none have the evidence to back them up or have not been studied and proven.
So they have not been subjected to rigorous trials or anything of that nature.
Right.
For what's called drug efficacy is not. It is not. They have not ascertained that. I guess last question then is, what services are available within your bailiwick at the Traeger Traeger Optimal Center Clinic in terms of brain health?
Yes, so we are developing our brain health service to have like a holistic interdisciplinary team approach. We want to have a center for both dementia patients and their caregivers to find a partner in their journey in this disease. So we have the services to help prevent, to give advice on healthy lifestyles to help prevent the disease, as well as to diagnose and treat. And then in addition to being able to do all the investigations and treatments as needed, we have different allied services like physical therapy, Tai Chi, yoga. Then we have a caregiver support group.
Wow.
Behavioral services, as well as art therapy. We collaborated with the law school to have lawyers on site to do advanced directives. And we are working on getting music therapy and exercise physiologist and the lifestyle kitchen.
Wow.
So we want a whole health approach.
You have a suite of services, and I encourage folks, if you have not checked out the website, please visit traegerinstitute.org, because Dr. Gomes has just described, a plethora of services and assistance and information that's available to you. And Dr. Gomes, thank you so much for your time. My conversation with Dr. Josephine Gomes has been, it comes now drawing to an end. She's a board certified in internal medicine and geriatric medicine, and she is the medical director of the Care Clinic and the Brain Health Service at Optimal Aging Clinic. I understand your areas of special interest that we didn't touch on, but are cognitive disorders, fall prevention, and optimal aging. And again, a rich resource of information. So again, please visit Dr. Gomes at the traegerinstitute.org. Thank you so much for your time. And I certainly encourage our visitors, our listeners, to reach out to you and get more information, and enjoy talking with you as much as I have. Have a good day, Dr. Gomes. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. My next guest on this episode of Optimal Aging podcast series, presented by the University of Louisville Traeger Institute in collaboration with Aging with Grace 55 Plus, focuses on cognitive health. Earlier in this particular episode, too, you heard from Dr. Josephine Gomes. And now I have the pleasure of introducing you to Dr. Joseph D'Ambrosio. And Dr. D'Ambrosio, you have a very impressive resume here in front of me. So if you could please share with us your commitment and what you're doing there at the Traeger Clinic Institute on optimal aging.
Sure. Well, it's nice to be here. I was looking forward to this today.
Thank you.
I am currently the director of behavioral health, and I'm also on the leadership team at the Traeger Institute. And I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed marriage and family therapist. I also have a PhD and a JD. And I have focused my career basically on working with older adults. And currently, really over the last number of years, working on how can we live optimally from a mental health standpoint. A lot of times with medicine, we look at the problems in the person, but you have to remember the head is still connected to the body.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can resolve a lot of the mental health issues that that happen to us as we're aging, it really makes the body operate a lot better.
That makes a lot of good sense. And Dr. D'Ambrosio, before we go further, I see the clinic behind you.
Yes.
Are you out front with a little
So
folding
no,
card table?
this is my funny photo of the front of the office. Everybody thinks I'm sitting outside in the middle of the winter. I sort of enjoy it.
You're out in the sidewalk. So folks, wander on by if you're at 204 East Market Street, and there's Dr. Joe D'Ambrosio with a pen and paper on the
That's
That is
it.
so they won't let you in the door. I see Dr. Fall over your shoulder saying, no, don't let him
Don't let
in.
him in. That's it. That's it. Well, it is appropriate too, because a lot of times people don't want to address mental health issues, especially with older adults. As we age, I laugh. Everybody says it's the golden years, but it's also the stressful years.
Mhm.
And keeping a good mental health attitude
Yes.
and perspective really does help you age optimally.
Mm-hmm. Well, helping it age optimally, and I think one of the things that when you talk about the well-being and quality of life for older adults, what are some of the key aspects, if you will, that some of our listeners should be aware of from your perspective?
Well, one of the first things I think everybody should be aware of, and that is the number of years that you've been on Earth doesn't equal the connection and the attitude that you have to have in life. So I think a lot of times we're programmed to believe that when we reach a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
that mentally we decline and physically we decline. And while there's enough research to show that there are age-related deficiencies that occur, but there are things that we could be doing to keep very active, to
Mm-hmm.
keep our minds active and our bodies active, from
Mm-hmm.
the food we eat to the engagement that we have.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you're in terms of your information, Dr. D'Ambrosio, that you share, which I love because it complements my podcast series, Aging with Grace 55 Plus, is the whole idea of combating ageism. And so, how does prioritizing behavioral health, how can that help in reshaping societal attitudes towards older adults from your perspective and training?
Well, it's quite interesting because being an older adult myself,
Mm-hmm.
I find that a lot of times the younger students will tell me, Dr. Joe, do you know about Google? And I, in my own way, tell them, no, I've never heard of it. That's amazing. But there's ageism all the time. The more you age, the more people look at you as deficient.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
it's important for us as older adults to really be more active than the younger adults.
Mm-hmm.
They need our wisdom. They may not think they do, but they need our wisdom that
Yes,
we
sir.
garnered over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But that means that we have to keep up with things. So
Mm-hmm.
how do we keep up with artificial intelligence, for example? Are we very active in it? We should be. Should we be exercising? Yes, we should be exercising more now than when we were 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What are we eating? The food that we eat, everything has a part in making us mentally well and engaging in life.
Mm-hmm. Which also complements what your colleague, Dr. Josephine Gomes, said a few minutes ago, especially about keeping cognitive health, keeping it sharp.
Yes.
And that's such a challenge for us. But Dr. Joe, I want to go back to something you said a moment ago about about aging or moving towards decrepitude. A lot of that, sir, I submit, is from Hollywood, right?
Oh,
Because whenever they show someone old, what is it? You're either on a cane or you're 80 for Brady in the movies or whatever it
yes,
is. So,
yes.
so you are you not swimming
Well,
upstream, sir?
we definitely in America swimming upstream. It's interesting in Europe and in the Middle East, older adults are honored. So younger people
Yes.
go to older adults for their wisdom. But in the United States, and I do think it's the media that has done that, portrayed us as feeble.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the 70 years old now is like 40.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, that's why I said it's not the number. And older adults should not be guided by the number of years that shows up on their birth certificate.
Mm-hmm. Well said. I had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Raymond Jetson, who is head of Metromorphosis down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And what he's doing down there, Dr. D'Ambrosio, kind of complements your mission. There, he's using what's called the spirit of Sankofa, which, as a tribal practice from Africa, is applicable, he submits, to all families, whereby, to your point, seniors are revered. They're at the center point, and the youth are compelled to go to them for answers, versus Madison Avenue, which is like, Bubba, get out of the way, because we want that 18 to 40-year-old purchasing
Yes.
segment.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And they're actually missing a big purchasing segment because the older adults probably
Yes.
spend more money than the younger adults.
That's exactly right, because the New York Times said that the older adults, we got our houses, our college loans are paid
Yes.
off, we have disposable cash, which is a great place to be, Dr. D'Ambrosio.
True.
One of your other colleagues earlier, in a previous one of our other episodes, I'm sorry, her name is Barbara Gordon. She talked
Yes.
about loneliness and isolation that can impact older adults' behavioral health. From your perspective, what guidance can you offer our listeners in terms of recognizing signs of social isolation, and then how can they take meaningful steps to foster meaningful relations as they continue to age?
Well, I often say, if you're 80 years old, think to yourself, what would you be doing if you were 40 years old?
Mm-hmm.
And to try and replicate some of that. Now, I can't climb Mount Everest. I'm not going to, nor do I want to climb Mount Everest, but I can get out in the park. I can do things that, that are healthy for me. And I think people should really look at what are activities they could include themselves in.
Okay.
Also, reaching out to families, forgive people. Let go of all the pain from the past. Maybe we don't have as many years as someone who's 20 years old to live. Live those years that you have as if it's every day is the last day.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Live it fully.
Yeah. But you know what? It's so hard for people to let go of past grievances, you know? It's almost like last week's food. It's smelly, it's nasty, but still people want to, pick around in there and find something. What is the baseline of that from your position as a doctor?
Well, I think once again, social media has a lot to play in that. We as humans like to have a bad object. We want to create one in our head, and when we create that one, we don't really understand forgiveness. And I think that compassion and forgiveness, at some point in life, you just let go of the past and you move forward. And in doing so, you forgive those people that you can forgive, and also interact with them. So, and nowadays it's so easy. Look at us, we're on Zoom. I don't know where you are. You know, I'm at the office, but you know, it's all of us we're able, video calls. I spoke with my son in Dubai this morning. I spoke with my daughter who's in Europe right now. I spoke with my other daughter who's in New York, all today. I'm not there, but at least I have connection. So it's reaching out, especially I see a lot of my older adult clients that have grandchildren, and they don't reach out to the grandchildren. It always baffles me, because I'm thinking, take your grandchild out for lunch, for dinner. And if they say, no, I don't want to go with old grandma, just go anyway. Just do it. Engage the world as if you were 40 years old. Look through your eyes as if you were 40 years old, not 70 years old or 80 years old.
That's a good way to put it. If I could just insert a personal opinion here, and I don't want you to diagnose me at this risk of sharing this, but you know, when the grands first start looking at me, they're saying, "Hey, Grandpa," I'm like, whoa. No, this is Poppy. This is how Poppy rolls, because Grandpa, going back to Hollywood, is sitting in the corner, it's rocking chair, saying, "Sonny, bring me some water." That ain't me, Dr. D'Ambrosio.
Good. That's good. That is good. And you have to remember that too, but you can play with that too. I have some fun when the younger people do look at you like that, because they do, and as they're socially constructed to do that based on media. There are some TV shows or Netflix series that you watch, there are no old people, only young people.
That's right.
They keep the old people out on purpose. And it's sad for them, but it's marketing. It's for them, it's marketing, and it's money, and it's what we do.
It's what we do. Well,
Yeah.
Dr. D'Ambrosio, as we go to our close, what advice can you give to our audience to navigate life transitions with resilience and such a positive mind impact that you have, sir?
So I think one of the things is acceptance probably is the most important thing. Accept where you are in life. Look at if you do have infirmities, okay, you have the infirmities, but how can I make them better? What can I do to make them better?
Hmm.
That's changing your diet. That's getting good sleep. That's getting out and exercising as much as you can. If you can't walk, you could still pick up a can of tomatoes and do some exercises with your arms. There's things you can do to engage in life
Hmm.
that people don't do,
Hmm.
either for a million reasons. I find that older adults, a lot of times, when they reach that number or they reach an illness, that they give up, and the medical system itself gives up.
How
So,
so? How
well,
so?
it gives up and then it just gives them medicine. It doesn't tell
Mm.
them, hey, you need to go to physical rehab. Let's try stretching. There's here in town, we have so many stretching, there's chirotherapy, there's massage, there's so many things you could be doing. Don't let age get in the way. And if there's, if finances are short, a lot of my clients, as they age, finances become short. They're on a limited income, but there's still things that you can do creatively to say, I'm going to get out, I'm going to go to a free show, I'm going to engage with people, go to church. And I think that's another spirituality for older adults, having some understanding of what happens when you pass on and being
Hmm.
okay with that.
Hmm.
So actually exploring yourself. This is our only time. This is our time when we have to finish what we started.
Mm.
We need to finish it in a way that's exciting, that leaves something for the future generations, and that also gives some meaning to us.
Well, this concludes this episode of Optimal Aging podcast series presented by the University of Louisville Traeger Institute Optimal Aging Clinic in collaboration with Aging with Grace 55 Plus. Truly appreciate both of our guests today as we discuss this whole concept of cognitive health. Earlier, you heard from my guest, Dr. Josephine Gomes, and now you've had the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Joseph D'Ambrosio. Both of them are available, not only them, but the tremendous resources that you can get by visiting traegerinstitute.org. Dr. D'Ambrosio, thank you so much, sir, for your time. I truly appreciate it. I'm going to come down and see you at your soapbox sitting out front because I saw
Okay.
you taking copious notes on my psychological profile.
Thank you so much. Enjoy being here.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Last week's episode concluded with us discussing mindful eating. And so, episode 2 now concludes with some ruminations about clutter. Two things that we can control: mindful eating and clutter in a rapid pace society that says go, 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 go. Remember that from last time? And I was asking you guys for other things that we can touch to slow down. Well, today we're going to talk about clutter because you see, we will never feel clear of mind in a cluttered space. Can't happen. Can't happen. But how can you achieve a clear mind when your living space is so cramped and crowded, filled with stuff you either don't like or don't need? You can't help but notice the accumulating dust over there or the piles of things to be sorted through over there. Perhaps the way the storage space in your garage is getting smaller and smaller. Clutter clutters everything. I'll repeat that. Clutters everything. Just give it a little scintilla of space and boom, it takes over and it starts to replicate, right? So over time, it closes in on you and makes you feel constricted. That's what clutter does. Or if you have belongings in the garage stacked to the ceiling or stuck in an offsite storage facility that costs you money every month, you'll always feel antsy and anxious about it. Think about this: offsite storage spaces being built at an incredible clip, costing and generating millions of dollars, all because we as a people do not want to throw things away, want to stack things up. And let me share this with you. One of the law firms I used to work for on the top of a high rise in downtown, when the partners moved to a different space, They made sure that all the flat surfaces that were around the cubicles of the line of assistants, of legal assistants and secretaries, they made sure they were pitched at an angle. Because when they were flat, what do? You stack stuff up on it, right? But when you pitch it at an angle, guess what? You pitch the stuff because it just rolls right off. And so let's have that kind of a mindset, right? And you may not be connected to those feelings of being surrounded by so much clutter, but I promise you that it does make us antsy. And research indicates it makes us antsy and anxious. So once we clear out the clutter, clear out the unnecessary stuff. It's how amazing free we feel with the new space we've created, both physically and mentally. And the knowledge that what you can no longer use may now be useful to someone else. That psychic satisfaction, that spiritual satisfaction, if you will, that what I've purged, what I've gotten rid of, maybe that's the one thing that somebody else needed and can now use. So when the place you call home is peaceful and comfy and inviting, your home becomes a place to look forward to spending time in versus a space, a prison, if you will, to escape from. Is that how we feel? We get home, we can't wait to get out of there, to either to go out or hang out, and of course the next day you have to go to work. So maybe we ought to strive to make that space more peaceful and comfy and inviting. And again, I'll underscore this. Let's make our homes a place to look forward to spending time in rather than a prison we can't wait to get away from. Well, that concludes today's show. And I trust you've enjoyed our guests discussing cognitive health in episode 2 of this series. You heard from Dr. Josephine Gomes, who is board certified in internal medicine and geriatric medicine. Also, we heard from Dr. Joseph D'Ambrosio, director of behavioral health and assistant professor at the U of L, University of Louisville School of Medicine. For more information on both or to contact them, visit their website, traegerinstitute.org. This has been your host, Dale Josie, and please listen to next week's episode of Optimal Aging, brought to you by the University of Louisville Traeger and Optimal Aging Clinic and my podcast series, Aging with Grace, 55 Plus. Remember, life is what you make of it, so plan to enjoy the journey with me and millions of others. Bye for now, and see you next time. Please visit my website, awg55.com, to listen to past episodes of Aging with Grace 55 Plus, including purchasing a deck of 35 oversized playing cards for deeper, more meaningful conversations with the seniors in your life or community.